Friends, today's NRI Samay program from Los Angeles brought to you commercial free by listeners like you. Your generous donations make possible for us to stay commercial free, and today's show is pre-recorded. If you have a question for the guest, please send an email to nrisamay@gmail.com. We will follow up with the guest and find the answer for you. Thank you for your support.
Friends, welcome to NRI Samay. This is your host for today's show, Sri Hari Atluri. Today we have with us Saraswati Kavula. She is a documentary filmmaker and environmental activist, human rights activist, and she has been working on a Polavaram project showing how people living in that area are affected. She is also NAPM Andhra Pradesh convener. Saraswati ji, welcome to NRI Samay.
Thank you, Sherry. I'm happy to be part of your show today.
Okay, excellent. Recently, we have done a show on Polavaram project, and we mentioned about some of the films you made, specifically the Damned project. I think it's available on YouTube. But before going into that, I would like to get some background on how you entered into filmmaking, and especially the documentaries, and maybe you can talk about what kind of films you are making.
To begin with, I was a hotel management graduate. I was with the Taj Group of Hotels for a short while, and I was also with the corporate bank for a year or two. But somewhere down the line, I just realized that was not my cup of tea, and then I kind of, let's say, transited and migrated towards media. I wanted to be in a creative field. And so I started with the radio. So radio is always a first favorite for me. I started with the All India Radio as a casual compere or a host. And then in the same time, I was also experimenting with working on TV and television programs, and with the, UGC, the United Grants Commission. They have some programs that they do in Hyderabad. So, so I kind of worked simultaneously at that time. During that 1-2 years, I did some groundwork working in ad films and in television production and radio production and things like that. And I had gone to the UK to get a degree in, it was a master's in filmmaking, documentary filmmaking. Till such time, I was interested both in fiction and documentaries, and even after coming back from the UK, I did some amount of commercial work, like commercial cinema. I was assisting as an assistant director. Then simultaneously, I was also, I got a chance to work as a field producer on a program called Grassroots for Doordarshan, which actually had opened up a lot of, let's say, new beginnings for me, because that had taken me to a lot of interior pockets of India. I was traveling across 4 to 5 states and trying to look at community-based developmental work. So for the first time in my life, I had gone to a tribal area and to some, a lot of interior pockets. I've never been there. So that kind of gave me a lot of insight into what was happening in the country. And so that kind of gave me some insight. And at that point, I was also, around 2003, I was working for a film called Morning Raga as an assistant director, and also was doing some costuming for that film. So during that time, I had attended a meeting regarding anti-nuclear movement, which was it was just a meeting convened to discuss about the issue of uranium mining in Nalgonda district, right next to the Nagarjuna Sagar Dam. And that was the first time I kind of forayed into activist work. I got involved in the campaign, and ever since I have been associated with a lot of environmental campaigns in Andhra Pradesh. And that was the time when I kind of felt that there was a need to show some kind of reality, because it has never been reflected in the mainstream media. during that time, a lot of questions had been asked to us that you're all anti-developmental activists and you're stopping progress, and nobody was talking about the impacts of either nuclear power plants or the uranium mining, and especially this particular project was being projected right next to the Nagarjuna Sagar Reservoir. That's like hardly 1 kilometer away. So, and the villagers there were being told that this is very safe for you. I mean, they were going to dig something like 3,000 tons of uranium ore per day, and that was going to be dumped. I mean, after processing, the residue was going to be dumped near the villages. And the villagers were being told that this is all very safe for you. So what happened was, when we had questioned the UCIL people, the chairman of the Uranium Corporation of India Limited, that when a pregnant lady is being told that she should not be taking X-rays because it's going to impact the development of the fetus, how can having 3,000 tons per day of radioactive waste right next to a village not impact the people? And then when you question the establishment about the impacts of the radiation that has happened in Jadavpur and Jharkhand in India from the uranium mining, they just brush out the whole questions. And even in Hyderabad, we had a lot of trouble in convincing people about the impacts of the radiation on people's health. And if, God forbid, if that project had taken place, then that Nagarjuna Sagar water would have been contaminated, and that water was going almost to 5 districts in Andhra Pradesh, right from Nalgonda to, the big city Hyderabad, and Krishna, Guntur, and I think Nellore and Prakasham. So that was going to impact close to 2 crore, or I don't know how you say it in millions, maybe 200 million people.
Yeah.
Close to. So there were no answers to these questions, and that was the first time when I felt, when I remembered a friend who told me, I was researching on a story about trafficking, human trafficking, sometime earlier, 1 year back, and he told me about how mining in Kolar gold fields, near a coal mine area, had impacted the people's livelihoods in the surrounding entire region, and how some people were forced to sell their daughters into human trafficking. I was surprised that such things were happening. But he said, no, this is pretty common. This is happening. A lot of times the so-called developmental projects have resulted in a great misery for the local people. And I later on found out that this has happened even in the case of Nagarjuna Sagar Dam, that the people who were compensated with something like 120 rupees per acre, a lot of that money was spent either in relocating or whatever, and a lot of times the compensation was not paid properly, and even if people had money, they could not. A lot of money gets spent, right? Once you have money in your hand, it's not like having land in your hand.
Right.
And,
because money gets spent and it's over, right?
Yeah, it's over. Even in relocating, the same thing happened in Srisailam Dam also. That money was just used for relocating. For a long time, the people, they had given away their lands, the title to their lands. They were given some money. The government had not come to take that land, so people thought they were never going to come. The money got spent. And one fine day, out of the blue, suddenly, the bulldozers land in the villages, and they were just bulldozed out, period, just like that, overnight, because we gave you the compensation. Then it was through these at that point there was no question of even rehabilitation or anything like that. And after many struggles, that the whole concept, especially of the struggle of the Narmada Bachao Andolan, which is one of the basis for NAPM, National Alliance People's Movement, the whole question of rehabilitation and land for land and that kind of aspects have come into the Land Acquisition Act. But even to this day, the rehabilitation never happens properly. So anyway, I was researching on something on human trafficking, and this friend told me about what happened in the coal mining area. And
coal mining area, is this in Telangana?
I don't know which part, but I don't remember. This was a long time ago. Maybe in Karnataka. I could not know which part. But a lot of people were reduced to just pulling. So see, doesn't have to be either Telangana or Andhra or Jharkhand or anywhere. But if you look at the entire developmental paradigm that has been happening in the world in the past 200 to 300 years of industrial revolution, a huge population of voiceless population had to pay the price of the industrial development. If you look at the growth of America, it has happened at the cost of the native Indians. I think you all know that story. And if you look at the growth of Europe, and Europe has developed, I would say developed in the inverted commas, they have developed at the cost of a large colonies that they have occupied. And Gandhiji had said 100 years ago, I think close to 100 years ago, that if India is going to follow, for a small country like Britain to develop, they have to colonize and take away the resources of half the globe. And if India had to follow in the same path, then we would need close to 6 planets. Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is what he said. And there was always this discussion between the Gandhian model of economy or development versus the Nehruvian model of economy or development, because Nehru was in favor of the Western model of development. And Gandhiji had said maybe it works for the West, but it certainly would not work for India. And his words actually ring very true today, if you look at it, at what's happening across the country. So anyway, so these were all these discussions that were going on. So I wanted to actually show this post-mining, what happens in a particular area. Forget about uranium mining, because uranium mining has a radiation and all this. But even a normal mining activity, what is the impact that it does on the surrounding places, the local population? So this friend had suggested, well, there is this mining going on, which is illegal mining. Of course, it's not legal, inside Narsipatnam in Visakhapatnam district, for gemstones. There's this stone called alexandrite, and it is supposed to be a very, very popular stone, much more expensive than the diamonds. And there was a whole lot of mining. So my first film was that, what is happening behind the gemstones. Because now when I look at all these ads that come on the television about diamonds and gold and all these very beautiful ladies in very posh localities wearing all this stuff, I keep wondering, does anybody ever think about where do these metals come from? Because I know for sure that the story of De Beers also comes with a lot of repression of the African people. And everywhere that these kind of minings have happened, there has been huge destruction of the local people's resources and the local population also. And so anyway, so this was my experience. I will upload that film also on YouTube. Maybe people can see it. I've not been able to upload. So that was my first independent film as an independent filmmaker. And then after that, I kind of felt that I would rather want to do documentaries than get back into commercial cinema. So ever since I've been working only in documentary fields. So I have done quite a few films, mostly on these kind of issues. Like I've done a film called Bliss, which was about the Devadila irrigation project in the Telangana region. Then I have also, one of my major films was this Coast Under Attack, which is a film about the setting up of the special economic zones and the coastal industrial corridor in the coastal Andhra, and its impact, what's happening, because they're thinking of thermal power projects and nuclear plants and pharma companies and a lot of chemical companies. And this is actually one of the major food-growing regions, not just for Andhra Pradesh, the earlier Andhra Pradesh state, but for the entire country. And there you want to set up all these kinds of projects. Now, what could be its impact? Now, when you look at Polavaram, this huge dam, which is going to be the largest displacement in the history of India, that water also is going to be actually supplied to these industries and to the urban centers of Visakhapatnam. It is not really going to help the farmers because there won't be any farmers left. You see, already across the coastal area, after NH5, most of the land is being acquired, already taken away, either by force, by hook, or by crook, whichever way. And they are being given away to private corporations for setting up all these polluting industries that nobody else wants in any other country.
Friends, NRI Samay is a non-profit independent alternate media from Los Angeles, USA, which brings positive stories from grassroots activists from all corners of India and across the world. If you have any interesting episode you would like NRI Samay to cover, we will be happy to do so. NRI Samay would also like to encourage amateur journalists who have a flair for highlighting current events. You can be part of our citizen journalist team. You could cover an important event, interview victims of an atrocity, or document an inspirational story. The idea is to have a mix of experience throughout all parts of the world, preferably supported by an audio or a video clip of your story to be aired, which will be the curtain raiser. You can also submit your opinion articles on important topics to NRI Samay. We will be happy to put it on nrisamay.com in the opinion section. All your work will be credited only to you. And if you're interested, please send an email to nrisamay@gmail.com.
So you're saying this Polvaram project and all this development they are talking about, it's actually for more of industrialization, and also we'll have less agriculture and less farming in one of the most cultivated areas in the country.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I have seen that, for example, in Kakinada, where I think you come from, in Kakinada Special Economic Zone, they were taking away 10,000 acres of land, just like that. And that's a land which gives you 3 crops. And these are lands that developed because of the cotton barrage and the various other projects that have come up earlier. Now, what are you doing? All that public money that was spent in developing irrigation, okay, there were lots of regional imbalances. Yes, one understands that. But you have developed all this using public funds, and it is natural resources which belongs to the entire community. Now you're going to destroy all this land that is going to be that is a food-growing region, and then you want to set up all these industries. And you are saying these people that we are going to provide you jobs. Now, why does one have to provide jobs to an already existent farming community? You're not letting them continue in their own profession. Now, who gives the right to somebody to come and dictate that this is what I want to do, and then you have to give up something for somebody else's sake? See, this is the development paradigm that one needs to start questioning. As to, simple example is the lifestyles that we are all having, an average urban Indian and an average American, the kind of carbon footprints that we are using, the number of resources that we are using. For example, the Coke cans that are used across the globe, they come from aluminum that is dug out from the Eastern Ghats in India. Now, in the Eastern Ghats, there's a huge lot of rivers that are coming out of Eastern Ghats, and there's a whole lot of tribal population that lives there that's been fighting tooth and nail to save them. Now, this aluminum companies, the huge aluminum cartel that is there across the globe, they are having a lot of money and they want to use that. Now, is it really important to have a Coke can, or do you want to protect the Eastern Ghats? And it's not as simple as that. Even for all your car manufacturing and all this kind of stuff, you need these metals. My question was, why is that I was in the United States 3 years ago. Why is that you don't have a policy for public transport system? Okay, we do. Everybody says, oh, do you want to go back to, Stone Age? I'm not saying that. We need to start making certain choices. Why not? Because in Europe it was possible to have such good public transport system, and it is not the end of the world if you don't own your own car. Right?
Yeah.
Now, why can't the same thing be possible in the United States? It's basically because the entire automotive industry and all the oil companies, they push these policies down the throat of the average American government. And the people don't think about it. Everybody thinks that they're doing well, and they have if you have a car, if you don't have a car, then you're not a human being, and so you have to have a car. Now, what is the cost of this on the planet, on the weather, on the climate? And who is paying the price? Because of the climatic conditions that were created because of global warming due to excessive use of fossil fuels, which is your petrol, your diesel, your gas, and all those chemical pesticides, fertilizers, and all the industrial agriculture. The people in Andhra Pradesh, in Kakinada, your area only, in Uppada region, the whole entire villages are getting washed away every year because the sea is rising every year.
Yeah.
Every year this is happening. Now, who is paying the price for all this? So this is such an indirect thing. I mean, people cannot look at it. So when we are talking about environment, we have to start looking at the entire picture, the big picture. Who is benefiting out of this development and who is paying for it? And definitely it is, at least for me, I feel, if it is not benefiting the majority of the population, then I'm sure it is not development.
Yeah.
Definitely you need to have a better human life index. Nobody's saying no to that. But then the average Indian had a better access to clean water, to fresh air, and to good food 20 years ago than they have today. And there's an increase in poverty, and it's been a jobless growth. And my question that had come to me when I was in school and there was all this computerization going on was, we are a populous nation. Now, in a populous country, if one machine can replace 10 people or 20 people, then how are we going to create jobs? How many people do you need to run the machines? You may need one person. And if you look at the sector of handloom, for example, the cloth-making industry, that was the most famous one across the world, which brought all the traders to India, which brought all the colonizers to India, the famous Indian fabric. Today it is in a pathetic stage. Our governments have become worse than the British in killing this entire industry by bringing in the power looms and the jet looms and whatever. I mean, it's a very beautiful, dignified way of work. And it's an artisan's work. It's an artist's work. It is not some kind of demeaning job that you have to say, oh, you get rid of this, I'm going to give you a new job. Now, these people have been thrown out of their entire livelihood by the policies of the government to favor the industry. Now, I want to ask, in a country where you have such a high-quality fabric-making industry that is providing a lot of work at a lot of livelihoods, and independent livelihoods where the entire family can work together and they can live a life of dignity, you're taking that away. And they don't even use any energy, right? They don't hardly use any electricity in that entire process. And then you're pushing that towards power looms and jet looms and the mills and the polyester fabric, all of which is, again, very high in energy usage and consumption, and that is adding again to your global warming. Is it necessary? That's the question that everybody has to ask. And in India, the best thing would be to use a handloom or a khadi fabric because that is what is suitable to our climate. But then our entire education system teaches us to wear trousers and shirts and skirts and three-piece suits, which are a culture and suitable maybe for a cold climate like maybe England. So whose development are we talking, and where does this idea of development come from?
Let me ask you a question.
Yes.
What many would say on the other side is if we go with the traditional way of doing things, which is what you explained about handlooms and things like that.
Yeah.
How do we compete with the old economy where now you have traditional clothes which are probably a little more expensive than the machine-made clothes right next to each other in a shop. So, and people are choosing the cheaper ones, maybe better-looking ones, or more fashionable ones. Then how?
True.
How does it?
My question is, even now I would want to say, why should we depend on this export market? I mean, India has such a huge population. Everybody is trying to grab our market share, our local markets. So the way the traditional economies, or what Gandhiji had talked about Swaraj, was localization. It was not globalization. In fact, there is a huge movement going across it's not a huge moment, it's a moment across the world now. People are talking about localized economies. They're not talking about globalization. See, when you're talking about a localized market, the way it was traditionally, people were manufacturing goods within their own area, and they would go to a local market and they would sell it. Now, there's a lot of security in this entire process. You know where you can sell your goods, you know the person who's going to buy your goods, and then you know what to make for them, right? And then even the maker knows about it. I'm not saying no to it. So, like our shanties, we still have some shanties, the markets, the village markets that were there, or the markets for a group of villages or small towns. You know about your farmers markets, which are there across the U.S., which are coming up now, as opposed to your supermarkets. Now, there you have, hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So there you have a security for the people, and the people know what they can manufacture, what they want to manufacture, and it is all a sustainable concept. Now, with handlooms also, why do we have to depend on the export markets? We have a population of 120 crores. Already 10 crore population, that is close to 100 million people, are employed in handloom work. Now, if this entire population of 1 billion people in India were to use only handloom and none of the machine-made fabrics, can you imagine the number of people that can come back and work in the handloom sector? And you don't need a market outside. Why should you? Why do you have to sell it out? This whole concept of trying to compete with somebody and all, I mean, it's all, I feel that somewhere a false kind of stress is being created.
But it's not only selling outside, right? It's also selling within the country, where you are competing
within the country also. What we are trying to say is, why is the other fabric cheaper? I want to ask, you have to ask that question first. Like, if you looked at the policies in India right now, in the past 20 to 30 odd years, what they've been doing is, there is a tax on cotton yarn, but there is no tax on polyester yarn. Can you understand that? The polyester fabric can come where a sari can cost you just like 200 or 300 rupees. And the polyester thread is made by this huge company called Reliance, and which owns like 95% of the market share on man-made fibers across Southeast Asia, not just in India. So it's just that one huge corporation which is being favored against this 10 million people who are, 100 million people, I don't know how many it is in millions, but 10 crore population that is using very little energy, that is not causing any harm to the environment, and they are living their lives of dignity, and they're not asking anybody for a job creation. This 100 million people are being pitted, who are very simple people who can't fight large corporations, and nobody talks about a good policy for them. So natural fibers are being made more and more expensive for the weavers to go and buy.
Yeah, and that's the reason we can't compete, because it's cheaper to.
We cannot compete. So who is not? Why are we not questioning that? We have to question as to in India, our policy should have been that. Look, my first priority is these people, this majority of the people who are dependent on that, and not only that, even from an environmental climatic perspective, it is better for us, the entire world, not just for India. And from the perspective of livelihoods, you don't have to create new infrastructure to create that livelihood. Every person staying in their own home can do this. Can somebody understand that? And then thirdly, one is that the livelihood aspect is, and then do you know how much percentage of the budget is given for the handloom sector? They give something like 300 or 400 crores, whereas the entire textile industry gets something like 5,000 crores. I don't know the numbers, but it is somewhat like that. So where is all that money going from the budget? It's going to your textile mills, it's going to your spinning mills, it's going to all that huge mechanized processes. And earlier, the farmer used to sell his cotton to the spinners within the local area. The spinning would be done, and then the yarn would come to the weaver, so the entire thing was localized. Today, a farmer may be in the same village as a weaver, but the cotton will go to some place like 100, 200 kilometers away, where it gets ginned and spun and maybe go somewhere else to get packed, and then it goes a total 1,000 kilometers and comes back to the same village as the weaver. And by the time it comes there, there's this huge energy expenditure and then huge cost that escalates, and by the time it comes to the weaver, he has to pay something like 800 rupees for 1 kilo of cotton yarn, whereas the farmer hardly gets 2,000 rupees for a quintal, that is 100 kilos of cotton.
Yeah.
And the farmers are never given the price. So the higher price that the weaver or the consumer is paying at the end product is never going to the farmer. So the farmers are also committing suicide and the weavers are also committing suicide. And why should we allow this?
Yeah.
Who is asking all these questions? Nobody understands. So as consumers, and my request to people across, whoever is listening, is when you are buying a product, please first things question, do you really require it? Because our consumption patterns is what is driving the global warming and is destroying somebody's life somewhere. And the second thing I could request all of you is, when you're buying a product, please look at it, not just the carbon footprint, but also where is it coming from, whether it is from a ethical point of view, whether there is been a social justice that's happening. So definitely I would say tomorrow if you're purchasing a product from Reliance, please question, why is it that the one particular corporation that was able to make this huge textile industry can manage to build a house, the mansion of 28 stories, and all these 100 million people here who are struggling to make like 100 rupees a day. So where is the fair play? So we need to start questioning if a product is coming. Definitely when it is coming from industry, when it is coming from a mechanized product, it will be cheaper.
Friends, NRI Samay is a non-profit independent alternate media from Los Angeles, USA, which brings positive stories from grassroots activists from all corners of India and across the world. NRI Samay does not rely on corporate funding and our shows are commercial free. We only rely on your donations. Corporate funded media is driven by the TRP rating and profits are blurring the distinction between news and entertainment. Why do our news channels talk so much about cricket, movies, accidents, popular figures' personal lives, babies of heroines, gossips, etc., while they should be covering the struggles of people, inequality in our society, rural issues, and border security issues? Why did our media raise some corruption crusaders to the sky on one day and shut them off completely when graft charges were raised on those corporate sponsors? Media relies so much on the corporate funding and government blessings that they cannot report independently. NRI Samay is different. We don't accept funds from any corporations and hence our shows are commercial free. We completely rely on donations from you. Please consider donating to NRI Samay and please go to nrisamay.com and donate generously. This is the only way together that we can continue NRI Samay. All donations are kept transparent on nrisamay.com. And if you have any questions, please write to nrisamay@gmail.com.
You made a very interesting point. I just want to repeat what you said. You said we need to, when we are purchasing something, we need to ask, do I really need it? But some people might think that unless we buy stuff, there will be some people who are dependent on it, and if we stop buying it, then the economy is going to crash, and
Well, I don't know about the American economy, but certainly the Indian economy will not crash. See, I would want to say this, even to this day, the amount of poverty that you so-called experience in India, still you don't find people rioting or anything like that. I can say certainly the reason is because we are still a largely agricultural country. And in a village, you'll not find beggars. People will always share their food and somebody or the other will feed the need and hungry. So that is the beauty of the system that existed. And the problem within the Western world is we have become so urbanized that such concepts don't exist anymore. And so we need to start looking at what kind of economic models are we supporting. And then why do you have to pay this money to some nameless, faceless corporation? And do you really know whether that particular corporation is really treating its people well or not? I want to give an example of Apache, which had set up, it is a company that manufactures shoes for Adidas. And they have been given the special economic zone in Nellore district, again in a coastal area. That was a rich, fertile region where people were living off fishing, and there were people who were farmers and, a lot of fishermen also. Now, this whole region of some 400 acres was cordoned off, and a lot of the farm laborers and the farmers themselves were going back as workers in that company. Now, inside this, according to the Special Economic Zone Act, the land is given at 1 rupee per acre on lease to the corporation. Can you believe that? 1 rupee per acre, okay? And none of the Indian laws will be applicable inside the Special Economic Zone.
Wow.
Because it's a totally export-oriented zone, so nothing, whatever you do inside that will ever be applicable elsewhere.
So it will be like exploitation, more exploitation.
It's a free zone. Yeah, it's a free zone. So I had interviewed people. I have this film online. It's called Coast Under Attack. You please see it on my YouTube link. But I've interviewed some of these workers. I managed to get them, when they came out for tea somewhere else. They just get like 3,000 rupees a month. Some people get more higher salary, but they say the amount of stress levels, they have to reach a particular target of doing cuttings, because this is shoes and the fabric or whatever has to be cut, or doing whatever the job that is. They have to do 1,000 per day. And if they don't finish that, they have to do extra hours. And during the entire day, they only get 15 minutes time to take a break. And in that particular factory, there was a story of a woman who gave birth to a child in the toilet.
Oh my God.
Can you imagine what conditions these people are all working on? So tomorrow, please, if you're saying that it's a corporation that you're supporting, please think again, because a lot of times the amount of human rights violations that happen inside these sweatshops, as they're called, is enormous.
So Adidas, I think Adidas is also have an immunity because they are not doing it in their own shop, but I guess they are
exactly. They are doing it in somewhere else, and they've got even if the police wants to go inside this economic zone, special economic zone, they have to take the permission of that particular site developer or whoever that's in charge of the S.E.Z is.
Yeah, actually, these kind of stories we used to hear from China.
No, the same thing. See, special economic zones, the S.E.Z have come because Indian policymakers want to blindly copy everything that is being done in China. Because we are only looking at all the glitz and glamour that is being projected about China. We are not looking at all the amount of human rights destruction that's happening, the amount of suppression. And China is a communist country, so all the more worse for it. But India it's a false democracy. There's no democracy in this country. No decision-making ever happens with people's consent. And even when either people are duped or people are told some kind of lies, and finally they all land up in a mess. Or if they do get to know some issues and they want to oppose it, as you know in Niyamgiri, what's happening with Vedanta and other places like POSCO, the movement, and the Narmada movement, people are just thrown in jail or just beaten up or something else. So if you look at the entire development of the United States or even the British, it was basically by making others slaves. It has not happened that easily. It is not as if one fine day suddenly somebody started constructing an industry, and it has not happened that way. I heard of stories where even the agricultural communities within the Europe were destroyed quite badly. And there were stories in India when first industrialization happened, and when the mining companies set up. This was pre-British times. And when the Adivasis, the tribal people, were not willing to leave the forest and come and work, one particular company, I don't want to take its name, it's a very well-known Indian company, now they have destroyed the forest to force the people to come and labor in the mines. So when we are looking at all these products, I want to ask people, please think, are these mines, okay, they may be providing jobs, but are they really places where we all would like to work ourselves? So in some way, all these things, these questions I've had, whether it was a pharmaceutical company or whatever, I'm not saying that we can go back to the old times and all that. It's not always hunky-dory. There was exploitation there too. But at least people had the option to breathe easily, they had fresh air and fresh water, and they had some kind of food. Today we're taking out even these basic rights for a whole lot of people, not just one or two. And the pollution that is being spread across the globe, and our children everywhere, even in America, they're facing it. So who is going to pay for that? We're taking it away all from the future generations. And just today we were having a discussion, and they say the IPCC also has come out with a fresh report and said that we just have 15 years left. If you don't, pull up your socks and do something about it, then we are gone then we just are not going to have any control on the climate at all. Now we don't have. We don't have anything. So basically nature itself is telling us, look, you as one species don't have the right to go on taking away stuff just because you want to continuously, upgrade either your mobile or your computer or something else.
Yeah.
Don't you think we have enough already to last us like 10 generations? I don't know why people want to go on this buying, binging, and just say, okay, I am buying something new today, so I'm happy. I stayed in the UK for 1 year, and I just said, okay, this is not the life that I want. I just packed my bags and came back. Because the basic thing, you're not getting proper food there. I didn't want to eat all the supermarket food. I wanted to eat something fresh. In India, every poor person also has the option of just going and buying some fresh food. If you don't have that, if you don't have an option to eat proper, nice, fresh food for a day, what's the point?
Absolutely. And actually
if you don't have that social linkages, see, what I missed was, you go to a supermarket, everybody is like an automated, nobody talks to you. Well, here in India, when you go to I know my sabzi wala, I know the dhobi person, I know everybody, and it is a personal contact, it's a social contact. And we are all interacting, and we need that as human beings. We need that understanding that, okay, I belong here in this place, and I know all these people. And that is precisely the reason, because the Western culture has cut itself out from this entire system, that there is so much unhappiness out there. And that's the reason when foreigners come to India, they say, oh, these people are also poor, but they can smile. That's because you have the social interaction still. To a certain extent, it's been destroyed in the past 20 years, to quite a bit of an extent. But still, it exists and survives in some place.
Absolutely. I think we learned a lot of information in this very short time. I think we should talk more, maybe in the next session.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Shehari, for giving me this opportunity. And once again, I would just want to take this opportunity and tell people, please support all the handmade goods and handmade, the artisans who are actually the ones who are saving the planet. And if you can, try and buy locally grown food, even if you don't get to eat bananas from Nicaragua or from India, because certainly they are very old. They come after 1 month, and what you're eating is a very old banana that has been used. They have used radiation to preserve it. They use gamma rays to preserve these bananas. So please eat what grows close to your home, and if you can, support as much as handmade products as possible, because that is what supports a lot of families and a lot of artisans. And and before you go on a shopping spree next time, please ask yourself whether you really need it, because that's what Gandhiji had said. There's enough on this planet to sustain everybody's needs, but not some people's greed. So we have to just start making that. And thank you so much for giving me this opportunity.
Before you go more specifically, if somebody is encouraged by the work that you are doing, and if they want to, because you are an independent movie maker and you are covering these ground level realities and people's struggles, so if somebody wants to support or contribute, or maybe they just want to join your crew, how can they contact you?
Well, I'm available on the Facebook on S_Kavula@yahoo.com.
S_Kavula, so S_Kavula
@yahoo.com. That's my Facebook account. Then, of course, I'm also associated with the NAPM, National Alliance of People's Movements. You can browse online. You can find about our work. So you can write to me, mail me on that, or there's another, if you want to mail me, you can write on skavula09@gmail.com.
Excellent. And to find your work, I know you have a YouTube channel, so you want to tell where they can see your videos and get inspired?
Yeah, it's there on YouTube. So if somebody wants to just, if you browse for Saraswati Kavula, I think you can find 1 or 2 channels on the YouTube. One was an old one that I created. I was not able to upload a lot of videos, but another one my friend had created for me, so he managed to upload a lot of videos of my work. Please understand, and you can see my films also, and a lot of other films which are available online. A lot of path-breaking documentaries made by a lot of people across the world. I think just once we start knowing these issues, then it makes we need to actually have a large people's movement, maybe across India and across the world, if possible.
Absolutely. With that, Saraswati, thank you very much for spending time with us and explaining a lot of issues that we don't hear from mainstream media.
Thank you so much. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Bye-bye.
Friends, if you liked today's show, please go to youtube.com/NRI Samay and click on the subscribe button. You will get notified every time we publish a new show. And you can also like us on our social media sites like Facebook, Twitter, and Google+.